All right, welcome in everybody. Wait a couple minutes here as we get started. For those that do not know me, I am Coach Chris. I run the Swim Accelerator, and I am here today to talk to you guys about the mental game. Let's go beyond stroke technique today. That's not what we need to be here. Most swimmers, they spend their entire careers chasing the perfect stroke. They grind through thousands of meters, breaking down their technique, tweaking their catch, their kicks, their pulls. And yeah, that's important. But know what happens when you get to that big race? None of that matters if your mind isn't right. It's kind of crazy, right? You put in all these hours of work in the pool, you get meter after meter, yard after yard, but when it comes to that race, none of that matters. You have to have your head in the right space. You could have the cleanest freestyle in the world, the most powerful underwaters, the best stroke efficiency. But if your head is elsewhere, thinking about all the problems of life, you're not going to swim your best race. That's unfortunately the very brutal truth to the matter. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to go beyond the stroke technique, how to get yourself ready for that mental game, because that missing piece is what holds back most of the swimmers I work with. So I would like to know, I'd like to have a raise of hands. You can put into chat, etc. Have you ever had a race where you've trained perfectly, but when the moment came, it all just sort of fell apart? I know I have. I've definitely had those moments. I've been ready for certain races and gotten up to that block, dove in, and just nothing clicked. Nothing connected at all. It felt like I never swam before. And it wasn't that like my strokes were bad. It was just that something in my head just fell apart. My brain went elsewhere. It didn't focus on the strategies that my coach and I had talked about. Or even situations where part of the race immediately fell off the edge, essentially. Like my start, maybe I slipped. Maybe my legs locked up. Sometimes I've seen that you feel that fatigue earlier in the race. Let's say it's a 200, and all of a sudden at the 50, you're like, my gosh, I am exhausted. All those things can create a negative impact. It can affect your mindset in all sorts of ways. Now, let's reverse the question a little bit. Raise your hand or post it in the comment where there was a race where you didn't even think about it at all. You just kind of swam. And at the end of the race or the end of a practice, a session, it felt like you had done nothing. But the times reflected on on the boards were perfect. They were exactly where they needed to be. You took off time in that race. You placed really well in that heat, whatever that happened to be. And you don't even really remember racing. That's the difference between overthinking and trusting your training. That's the mental game. The truth is, swimming is 90% mental, only 10% physical when it comes to race day. Your brain dictates how your body will perform. Yes, there is hydration and nutrition and all those kind of fun factors. Those definitely play a key role. But your confidence decides how you're going to attack a race. Your focus determines how well you're going to execute under pressure. I've worked with swimmers who looked unbeatable in practice. Everything leading up to a meet has looked great. They're hitting every mark we wanted to hit throughout that week of practice and the weeks prior to that. But then they crumble when it comes to the competition. They don't hit nearly the times they want to hit during a race. And I've worked with swimmers who weren't the fastest, but had strong mindsets. In fact, they had some of the strongest mindsets I've ever seen, stronger than I ever could have. And they were the ones who were winning races when it came to race day. So let's break that down. How do you develop a mindset that can make you feel unstoppable? How can you basically put both of those aspects together? Who can we be that we're hitting those marks during practice and then executing on race day? That's where it really comes into play. Mental toughness isn't just something we're born with, it's something you have to train. Just like your stroke, your underwaters, your starts, there are three key ways that you can help develop this. One of my favorites, and this is the one I'm going to start with today, is visualization. You have to rehearse success before it actually happens. Your brain doesn't know the difference between something you imagine and something that you actually experience. That's why you can have moments of deja vu where you feel like you've done something before, but you've never even been to that place. It could be actually that you had this dream, a very vivid dream, where you did something and it connected with you. And then you go and you actually do it, and it's felt like you've done this before. In some cultures, they think that's part of your past lives. That we have experienced these things in before they actually take place, because in a previous life, in a previous time, we were somebody else and we already did these things. We've already accomplished this. That is basically the power of visualization. When Michael Phelps steps up to the block, he had already swum his race thousands and thousands of times in his mind. So in 2008, when he won all 8 gold medals, he had swam each of those races every single time, every prelim, every semi, every final. He knew exactly what those outcomes were going to be. He knew exactly how every turn was going to feel, how every race was going to hit, and how he would have to push through on those last 50s just in order to make the final or touch out his competitors. He even visualized all the things that would actually go wrong, like his goggles filling up with water in Beijing. Yes, he didn't want that to happen, but it did. But he had already played that scenario in his head. He already saw the challenge and how he was going to overcome that. So here's my challenge to you on this point. Before every race, every tough set, every key moment, take a moment and visualize. Close your eyes. Picture your race. Picture the dive. Picture the turns, the breakout, the rhythm of your strokes, the final push to the wall. See yourself winning, hitting the time you want and executing directly. If you don't see it first, it'll never make it happen. Now, beyond visualization, you have to have a lot of good self-talk, controlling that voice in your head. Those little tiny voices in our head are very quick to put us down, to look at the negative side on everything. So be honest here for a second. How many of you have had that inner voice as you step up to the block and think, My gosh, I'm not ready for this. I can't go that fast. I'm struggling. I'm going to fail. I won't be able to hit the times that my coaches want me to hit. I know I've had that conversation in my head many times. What we have to do is we have to turn that conversation around. We have to shut that inner negative voice out. Instead, you want to hype yourself up instead of tear yourself down. I hear swimmers all the time. I hope I don't mess up. Or what if I die in that last 50? Or even I don't feel great today. That's one of the fastest ways to lose a race before it even starts. Your brain listens to what you tell it, so start telling it the right things. Tell yourself, I'm ready. I've trained for this. I've built up all the right elements for this moment. The fastest swimmers don't just train harder, they train how they think. And that's what makes them so dangerous in the pool. So when you show up even to practice and you say, man, I'm super tired today, or I don't feel 100%, something feels off. All those things are those negative talk moments that you have to turn around. You have to make them better. Instead, say, I don't feel 100%, but this is a great opportunity to work on my underwaters. Or I'm going to tighten my streamlines off of every turn a little bit more to see if I can amplify my distance. Make those sessions intentional then. If you don't feel 100%, that happens, but don't lean into it. Use that as motivation to tell yourself a positive story. Use it to be intentional. Use it to be better than what you were the day before. And when it comes to races, there's lots of uncontrollables. So many. You can't control the weather if you are swimming outside. You can't control the noise, the craziness of loud audience members watching your swims, whether your goggles leak, your cap rips. All those things are uncontrollable. You don't know that they're going to happen until the moment gets you. All you can do is turn those moments around through visualization and self talk. Find the positive, even if you just have to almost lie to yourself. Your brain isn't that smart, it does not distinguish between the two. Checking my notes here. One of the things that comes up a lot is nerves. A lot of my swimmers talk to me about nerves. We tend to have a lot of anxiety before a race, even though we've done it so many times and every race is different, but in reality, they're all still the same. We still have nerves, especially if it's the first race of the day. I promise you, every swimmer feels them. That rush of adrenaline, that tightness in your chest, the shaky legs, that's your body preparing for battle. But if you don't control that energy, you're basically letting it control you. Some of the common signs of anxiety for races is that shallow breathing. You're overthinking the race and you're feeling like you're already exhausted before you even dive in. What can we do instead? Be present. As you get ready for your race, especially if you have a couple heats, take a moment, control your breathing into the nose, out through the mouth. Stay present in that moment. Focus on your breath. Basically, be very tactical in the way that you sort of reset yourself, reset your breathing. I like to use the 4-2-6 method in this manner. What this is you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for a count of 2, and then try to exhale for a count of 6. A similar approach is using the box method, which is just basically 4, 4, 4 in, hold for 4, out for 4, have nothing for 4, and repeat. Similar method. What this does is it helps to slow down the heart rate a little bit, clears your head, and locks you into that moment. The best swimmers aren't distracted, they're focused, and when the buzzer goes off, they're ready to execute. Now, for like a 50, you don't have that time to rev up in your race. So you do have to use some of those nerves, some of that energy in a positive way. Control your breathing still, but don't let the heartbeat go too low. You want to have a little bit more excitement going, a little bit more blood pumping through the veins at a little bit of a higher pace. That way, when you have that moment to execute and jump off of that block into the race, you're ready to go. You can just bullet your way through that race. Things like the 1500 or mile or 800, 500, you have a little bit more time to rev that engine. Now, with all this being said, there are times that we are going to hit plateaus. Every swimmer hits them. I've I've had my fair share of plateaus throughout my life, either due to injury or just not feeling motivated to be in the water anymore, losing that joy, that fun. Most swimmers get frustrated. They start doubting themselves and losing motivation. But here's what separates the best from everyone else. They don't focus on what's not happening. They don't focus on what is not being executed on. So if they aren't hitting those pace times, they're not hitting those milestones in their training that they want to hit, they don't focus on that. They focus on what they can control. They break down the bigger goals into much smaller ones, things that they can achieve either in a shorter period of time, like a month, 2 weeks, even a day. Like, what can you ask yourself, what can you achieve today in practice that will help move the needle towards your bigger goals later in life? You want to track your progress. Improvement isn't just about times, it's about efficiency, endurance, and mental resilience. Those make a huge difference. You can use things like the between laps swimmer journal that I created. It allows you to track your progress over time and you can see those milestones start to add up. Slight little plug there. Don't forget to celebrate your small wins. Every time you refine a detail, you're one step closer to a massive breakthrough. And that's what swimming is. It's refining those individual details time after time. It can be frustrating when you don't see those massive improvements right away. But as long as you're being intentional and as long as you're making those little steps towards your bigger goals, you can celebrate those wins. The fastest swimmers aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who stay locked in when things get tough. And to kind of wrap things up before I open up the Q&A, is the mental game doesn't just make you a better swimmer, it makes you better in life. Because discipline, focus, confidence, those don't just stay in the pool. They go everywhere. You become a better problem solver in the workplace, for your family, for your friends, for yourself. How are you training your mind in swimming can carry such weight in the ways that you handle life, school, relationships, everything around you. It teaches you to handle pressure, to push through it when things get tough, to show you that you're ready when you don't feel like it. So here's my challenge to you. Start implementing some of these today. Start working on visualization. If you have a meet, even if it's 2, 3, 4 months away, start visualizing that today. Control the way you're talking to yourself. Stand in front of the mirror tonight or tomorrow morning and say something positive to yourself. Or even before you walk on the pool deck in the locker room, go tell yourself something positive. Maybe it's, wow, you are really good at underwaters. Or even, I am a really good teammate. It can be simple. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking. Start managing those nerves long before you're behind a race. Set real goals and work on those small elements in between. And finally, track that progress. If anything gets tracked, it gets accomplished. Things that don't get tracked, they don't get better. So, this is what we have for you today in our session. I hope you found it interesting. Please leave comments if you happen to miss or are watching the replay. Leave some comments, ask some questions. I will love to get back to you. Until next time, keep swimming, and I'll see you guys later.